Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Inside Music. As always, I'm your host, James Shotwell, and it is great to be with you again. My guest this episode is Virginia rock band Pale Blue Dot, whose most recent single, Waiting for Signs, is available now on all streaming platforms. It's an immersive, expansive, alternative rock masterpiece that you will not soon forget, and it will likely make you very amped for the group's upcoming album, which is something that we discussed at length in this show, alongside other topics like the current pandemic and how it's affecting marketing and music promotion, live streaming, putting on a good show, creativity in the midst of a disaster, and much more. There's so much good stuff in this episode, whether you're an artist or just a fan of music, and I think you're going to love it. But before we get there, I need to tell you a few quick things. First and foremost, this episode of Inside Music, like all episodes of the show, is brought to you by Haulix, the music industry's leading promotional distribution platform. Now, what that means is that record labels and artists all over the world use Haulix to share their music with people in the media, at radio, and beyond. You can join today and gain immediate access to the same tools used by Bruce Springsteen, Slipknot, and thousands more by visiting Haulix.com. That's Haulix.com. If you go there and sign up, you'll get your first month of service absolutely free, courtesy of your friends here at Inside Music. But right now, all I want you to do is to sit back, relax, or pay attention if you're driving, and enjoy this episode of Inside Music with Pale Blue Dot. Let's kick it off. How is your day going? What are you guys up to today? Where are you at? What's happening in your world?
Typically I teach on Tuesdays, but with school kind of being all weird starting the year, I don't teach today, so I'm kind of free, which is nice. This is a rehearsal space. It's a home that we rent the basement out, basically.
Well, that's good to know that you guys are in the practice space. Are you working on new material? What are you working towards right now?
I guess we're working towards just staying on with the sets, the goal we just come off tour right when COVID hit. And our plan was to kind of chill until May anyways. And then we were supposed to release the record in May, and then be touring all summer. Obviously that didn't happen. So, when our state, we're in Virginia, when our state went into phase 2, I think, is when we were like, hey, let's get up and going again, So once we did that, we just started kind of getting comfortable with the record again, kind of playing it front to back, and then we would kind of pepper in some of the stuff from the last couple albums. And now we're kind of in this question of like, what do we want? Meaning like what's next, and like we're going down to the studio where we made Kingdom to do like a live stream that's more of like an interview kind of thing. And so for that, we're going to play all stuff from Kingdom. So we're going to have to stay on that. But then towards the middle of September, it looks like we're going to do a full on, hour and a half set. So for that, we're going to kind of have to get back into that mode of working on all the other stuff. I mean, honestly, it's just so weird, I mean,
I do know.
Yeah, right. I mean,
well, tell me, guys, I saw your performance the other night. You, one of the bands I worked with, you, me, and everyone we know, you guys are all on a live stream taking turns. You guys had a full production going. Yeah. So was that your first live stream of this time, or have you been doing a few?
That was our first live stream for the year.
Well, look at you bringing the heat round one.
Yeah.
So how did that come together? So for people that didn't see it, if you're listening to this now, you can still find it on Facebook, but you guys it looks like you were in an actual venue performing with like actual people there helping you put on a live stream.
Yeah. So we happen to be, in Charlottesville, Virginia, which is where Red Light management is stationed, and they own two clubs. They own a club and a theater. They also own a huge amphitheater, all in town. And so the plan was for Dak and I to do an acoustic set, and our booking manager, who does work for Red Light for one of the venues, was like, "Hey man, I have this opportunity to get you in to the Jefferson Theater, which is 1,200, 1,250, 1,300 cap room. It's skeleton crew, and but we've been live streaming in 4K, and it looks good." And he really wanted to beta test something, which is actually pretty rad, and we'll probably be doing on the next couple of streams, which is we had a separate Zoom link for people to click into, and then we were projecting them on a screen on stage where we could see their faces, like the NBA is doing. You know what I mean? Where it's like there was real human connection.
It was kind of like an audience.
It was kind of like an audience. I mean, not really, but as close as we can get without being, like Van Morrison or somebody crazy who's like, "Oh man, who cares about the pandemic?"
Yeah, exactly. No, I watched Jason Isbell's release show for his new album, and they used some platform that does that, where they were performing in a venue in Nashville that has like a bowling alley, and they were projecting all the Zoom links on the wall of people watching it. And it was weird because he attracts families, so there was like a lot of like mom, dad, multiple children. Some of them were indoors, some of them were outdoors. But then as it went on, like they would randomly like rotate who was being blasted onto the wall. So you would sometimes see people like go into the kitchen to get a drink, or like having a conversation or whatever. There's just like all these other things. And when it ended, there's like a big message that was like, remember to shut off your webcam, because like the room just stayed open and people were just like, "Oh, just go about our lives," and forgot that they were on webcam.
Yeah. Oh, no. Well, that's we were kind of shooting for the opposite. Like we wanted to have that human interaction, and people are pretty stoked because we really haven't done much. Like I have done some streaming from home, and I hate it. I do. I don't see the only time that I will do any sort of live stream is after I do like guitar and vocal lessons. And obviously now it's all through Skype and Zoom and stuff. And after I get done, it's weird. Like I have this like urge to just perform. And so I just like, I hit, record, and I have this Apogee Duet, and I use the camera on my computer, and I just have at it, and I play for like 20 minutes, and I'm like, "All right, see you," like, bye. I don't know. Like I have friends who are doing it and doing a good job of it, and they're making some money, but it just seems like more work than I want to do. And that sounds bad because I like doing what I do, but it's like playing to a mirror, and I don't like that, Like yes. I play for cathartic reasons,
Yeah. Yeah, I do. We just did a podcast series, another show that I host called High Notes. That's more of a narrative driven thing. So I like doing this because I can like interact with you. We talk, we laugh, we have jokes. But that was just record the interview and then me alone in a room for like 5 hours. It's like doing vocals for an album, but there's no music. It's literally just your voice in silence, and then just listening to it back and being like, "Do I sound serious enough? Like, have I reached podcast guy voice yet?" And it's really frustrating. So I kind of understand in that way. But I was watching your performance the other night, and I actually was really taken back because it did feel like a big production. But I was curious for you guys being on stage performing to the space that we couldn't see, that was empty. Like, how did that feel to like have the whole thing going and then look up and there'd be like the 4 people that were helping you?
Through that, yeah. For me personally, it was just like, it just felt like there was just the 4 of us on stage, really, and we're just kind of like jamming out. It was still the energy I felt from like when you usually have a crowd, but it, like we've said, it's just nothing out there. There's a few really good dudes that helped us with the production as well. What would it feel like to you?
I mean, I thought the idea was, it felt real. It felt real because I had a couple little like moments where like my in-ears popped out, and I was like, well, all right, I know how to hold this shit together, like I know how to not train wreck, and that's what I've been, preparing my entire life for it. And then at the same time, like we tend to jam when we're on tour, but that show didn't feel like Dak was saying, like jamming in the sense of like we're just grooving, like we're gonna do our thing.
Yeah.
But I mean like jamming, like exploring a little bit, and I definitely didn't feel like we had room to do that.
No, I agree.
And that's okay. Like, I mean, it's, we have to. The fellow who did sound for us is the front of house for the Jeff, and he's been on tour with like Parachute and Sons of Bill and some pretty big acts as their front of house. And he said something to me, man, because when I said like, because he asked the same question you did, like, was this our first time streaming? And he was like, I just don't understand why more artists aren't doing this. And I was like, well, it's a technology thing. He's like, no, because the same people who are, using their phone, they're doing it the wrong way. Like they just turn their phone away, so that the good camera's facing them and just go for it. And then, you can spend $100 at Sweetwater or wherever your local music store is and get a little dongle to plug in a mic and you're in business. You're actually going to sound better than the next person. And that's what we have to remember is more important, I think, is sound quality. Like, I hate Spotify, like I'd rather listen to a record because that's what the band sounds like, and when I watch these streams, like you feel bad because we're not equipped for this, And so again, when this fell in our lap, it really happened like on Wednesday night at like midnight, that it was kind of going to be full band and we were going to do it on a stage and have multi-camera and all that. We jumped on it because it was like, yeah, that's how we want to perform.
Yeah.
We just want to be, that's what we do. So.
Well, it came together, but I do imagine that for me, at least, I feel like in my brain, the weirdest part is getting to the end of a song and then like the silence of the space. Like, oh, now we just keep playing. Like, it's like playing a bad show almost.
That's exactly it. And that's why I don't like doing the at-home recording, because the only person that's going to clap for me is, myself,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, sometimes I said it to someone the other day, it's like Ben and you and everyone he'll send me audio things that he's recorded on his phone. I'm like, what do you think of this? And I don't care what I text him back. I imagine that it all reads with like the same tone to him. Like there's no way to be like, this is amazing, man. It's always just like, yeah, that was good. That's how I imagine my texts always come across. Like, this is really good. Well done. It doesn't have the excitement of like being there and being like, listen to this thing we just wrote.
Right. Yeah. The message is always going to be lost in text. Yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead. Oh, you're fine. This is your appearance. I'm here every week.
Well, no, what were you going to ask?
I just wanted to know, because you guys have been active and are, as you just described, you have a lot coming up soon. And something that I've been asking a lot of artists over this period is, what has been working for you guys in terms of making people care about your music? Because this is like a strange time to be a band that I imagine is often like, you need to see us live and then you'll get it. So when you can't be like, see us live, like what is the thing you're doing to help get the name out there and get people to care about your music, build the audience?
I don't know the answer to that. I think we were kind of having that same conversation, but more of a question amongst ourselves. Like, content is king. People have 10-second attention spans these days, and I don't know, man. Like, I'm an old school guy, dude. Like, I don't subscribe to the idea of bands releasing singles. Sometimes it works, don't get me wrong, but no one says like, oh man, my favorite single of all time was this. Like, you can say your favorite song, but like, that song's also part of a record. And then you kind of go back and you say like, yeah, man, Fleetwood Mac Rumors was fantastic, or Pearl Jam Yield, or whatever. There's always that connotation of like, it was a chapter in a book of other tunes. And, for us, when we made this thing, we were, this next record, we were thinking internally about like what we need to have to prep for a release. And oddly enough, we sort of, luck is not the right word. We've been able to kind of like ride this wave of COVID to our benefit by having more content than we needed. If we weren't, quarantined, I'm wearing a mask next to this dude, like it's weird. And so I think to answer your question, it's just like, you have to have content, even if the content is, not grade A, just something, and then you utilize that to do what you can. And that's why I think like when we internally were talking with Jayon, our booking manager, and deciding what we were going to do, because our manager was like, you guys should do the acoustic set and don't worry about it, and he was probably, he's obviously not wrong. Everyone else did that. But then when we got on stage and we got to do what we do, like we walked off and Turtle said that. Turtle was like, that felt like a real fucking show, man. Like that felt like exactly what we need to feel like we do what we do. And we don't, we're not, obviously it's nice to get paid to do what you love, but like, this is not an industry anymore where you really get paid. It's an industry that you're just passionate about, and you wake up every day and you work on it and you try to be better than the next, you try to be better the next day than you were the day before. And so for us to be able to go and perform, a short set, but with amps and without face coverings and being on a stage that's, nice size and, having the lighting, and there was haze, all these things that like, you only get every other show, sort of, so to speak. And to have that as our first show of, or kind of really for our first show of 2020, it was great. Honestly, it was really good. And to know that we're going to be doing it again, fairly soon is also nice.
Well, I'm excited to see a band in your position who's on the rise, being open to experimentation, to being able to admit, like, we don't know what's working, but we're just going to like throw it all at the wall, see what sticks, and then kind of like build from there.
That's exactly it, man. That's another conversation that we're having, which is, what is, first of all, what does success look like in the 21st century? And it's obviously changing and morphing for the last 15 years, 12 years, 13 years. And success is no longer, playing Madison Square Garden or getting a huge record deal with Atlantic Records or something. Like, all that shit's gone. Like that's gone. What success now is like, can I make $25,000, $30,000 on the road doing this just every day? Like that's all I want to do. And have fans who are supportive. And we found out with our last record. That was kind of, I think the shocking thing was that, the Anatomy got released and 6 months went by and it was like, oh, okay, these numbers are okay. This is good. And then all of a sudden I'm getting, emails, and DMs from the Netherlands and Brazil and, like random places in the US that like we haven't even toured to yet, and it's like, well, I kind of like this, like this is working out. So then kind of cut to 2020 and again, kind of pre-COVID mindset, it's like, well, we're just going to do the same thing, but bigger, like on the release, like we're going to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row, and we're going to, making sure that we have plenty of finances to pay for it all too. Cause it's not cheap, and then COVID hits and you kind of realize that you already, at least we feel like we're already in this position to be able to do these things properly. And it takes a little bit more thinking and thinking outside the box. And it also takes a community. You mentioned like having these people in the theater. They did it for peanuts. Really, they really did it for like $50. Like, you know what I mean? Like they were just like, yeah, I'll do it because we want to help. We need to help the community right now. Our industry is already in tatters.
Yeah.
And it didn't need a pandemic for anyone to notice that. And now now it's not just the artists, now it is the venues. And that's the part that, I hope these bills do pass, and I hope that we do get some attention from Senate and Congress and maybe Trump, who knows, probably not, to actually save these venues and to get people to continue to have jobs. I have a buddy, this is just kind of a tangent, but like I have a buddy he's a master chef. He went to CSA, and he's worked at like high end levels, and then he opened up his own food truck or whatever, and then he moved to Saudi Arabia and was like managing like 15 restaurants, and like kind of this big deal dude. COVID hit, he moved back here, he's living with his parents, doesn't know where to go, because he wanted to get out of Saudi Arabia. He felt like that might not be the best place to be. Who knew it was going to be America, huh? Sorry. I'm pretty bitter about this whole thing. And he said to me, we're talking and we're being really sincere with each other. And, obviously the restaurant industry is linked to the music industry and always kind of will be, whether it's bar or restaurant or whatever. It shares some similarities between each other. And he was like, the good news is that once all this shit's over, people are going to want to go out and be entertained, and they're going to want to eat. Like they're going to want to go out and have a nice meal. They're going to want to go out and feel comfort. And that's the other thing with all this is like, yeah, we got to be on our toes, and yes, we have to think outside the box, and yes, we have to like keep swimming to survive and be able to do what we did. And we're lucky that we have red light in our backyard. That wasn't lost on us. And we kind of felt bad too. Like, we felt bad that like the other bands are playing in their basements and it's not fair. But we had an opportunity, we had to take advantage of it. But again, at the end of the day, it's hope that come springtime when everyone gets a vaccine and but people won't. That's the thing. Like that's where it's like it just start beating your head in. Like they're going to be those idiots that like, you can't tell me wear a mask. You can't tell me get a vaccine. Like, all right, man. Okay. I don't know.
Absolutely. No, you're right. I run a YouTube channel where we post a lot of music industry news and insight. And I've made a lot of videos about how COVID has affected the industry, especially the live entertainment side of things. And every time I make a video, I get people in the comments that are like, but what if I don't want a vaccine? It's like, right. Okay, all right, that's cool. Like, what are you trying to prove right now?
Don't come to my show. That's what's up. Don't come to my show. Don't put me at jeopardy. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, we all wear masks like in rehearsals and stuff. And honestly, that was the first time on stage. It was the first time we all played without wearing a mask since before COVID. And
which was a treat.
It was a treat. Honest. Yeah, like it's nice. But I know that I'm doing this because as somebody who relies on their voice, I can't afford to have lasting scars and effects on my lungs. You know what I mean? Because somebody was silly and didn't wear a mask, or I was silly and I didn't wear a mask. It's just
yeah. I mean, that's the best expression. I mean, it's frustrating. It's common sense until you remember, as George Carlin always said, that the average person is pretty unintelligent. You have to remember that that's average. There's half of them are worse. Well, guys, this has been really fun so far. I enjoy talking to you, but let me ask you this, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot, especially for a band in your position. You have all this new material that you haven't really gotten to play with a lot, and I have a lot of friends in bands who like put out a record in March, and then they're like, we haven't actually played any of that music for anybody just yet, really. And are you thinking now, as creative people, are you like, let's go ahead and write the next release or two more releases, or let's do EPs? Are you planning to, like, what are you doing about producing new stuff now?
I don't know. I'm the kind of writer that, when I write, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, there's So the gentleman who produced Anatomy and Kingdom, which is coming out in September 4th, Dave had said to us, you guys should start working on new material so that as soon as you're out and you're able to tour, then in between tour you can come and make a record. So that's been said, that's certainly an idea. The problem that I guess I have with it is that it took me 2 years to write about 16, 17, maybe 20 songs that I whittled down to the eventual product, which is 11 songs for the new record. Some of those were co-written with Dak, co-written with the band, but majority of them is I bring things to the table. When I bring things to the table, I'm even going through my own filter. You know what I mean? Like I'm writing and then like, is this a Pale Blue Dot song or is this just trash? Or is it something I want to save for later? Or maybe it's not good enough for anything and I'll just cannibalize it later, which I do a lot, But, to think about a new record right now, I'm just not in that mindset. Like if I had released something in March, if I'd released something in March, I probably would have been writing this summer a lot more. But honestly, man, like all my attention 24 hours a day is set to making sure this record is heard by as many people as they can possibly get it into their ears. We trust the material, to hopefully get us to the next level, and sustain us long enough that we can, write the next one and be able to kind of continue to kind of move up. But I don't know. There's that statement from the CEO of Spotify, where it's just like, just give me content, basically, right? I don't care about your artistic creativity. Just give me content. And that's where it's like, yeah, I don't know about that, man. And that's kind of how I feel. It's like, I'll write when I want to write and I'll write when I'm ready to. And obviously there's plenty of material to start writing, but I this record's pretty political and it's pretty questioning, not questioning science, but questioning humanity and, theology and things like this. And all of that is ripe for November 3rd, or 4th, whatever, November 3rd. And I want to get it out by then. And then after this, hopefully I don't have to write any political songs for a little bit, hopefully.
You can hope. Yeah. I heard a really good philosophical viewpoint the other day where the guy said that most people never live long enough to see history repeat itself, even though it does over and over again. So if you want to know where you are, historically speaking, just subtract 80 years from where we are right now, and that gives you an idea of like what's happening culturally. And that's 1940, which isn't really like a great time in human history. So we'll see. We'll see by the end of the 40s, it gets a little bit better. We'll see. But I like your stance on it because I feel like what's going to happen right now. My biggest fear is that we're going to see a lot of artists who decide 2020 is the year to do their holiday album, the one that we don't need, but they're like, well, what else are we going to do? And then after that, it's that we see a lot of artists who really double or triple down on their catalog. I've seen a lot of bands talk about, doing enough material so that when touring can resume, they can just go out on the road and be out on the road and be like, oh, we can just release a record every 8 to 12 months for the next 2 years because we've already written and recorded 2 albums worth of material. And then by the time that we need to record again, we'll theoretically have more material ready to go. So they're using this time to kind of like create a stockpile. But my concern with that is, and I think you kind of touched on this, is like you write a little bit about of the moment, like what's happening now. And if you write a song right now and try to release it a year from now, I don't know that it's going to have like the impact that you think it will because we've moved on.
Yeah.
It's like the same problem with people that, in March were like, we're going to delay our April album until November, or some of them are even pushing it to next year now. And it's like, yeah, but an album written before all this happened, I think as listeners, we're going to like be like, this doesn't sound like reality anymore. This sounds like some 2019 stuff. And that isn't how we look at the world anymore.
that's something that like we were all talking about too, which is like I was in a pretty dark place when we started making this record, which was August of last year, which is crazy to even say that.
Yeah.
And then we did our second session in like October, November or something. But that's like, during all that period was, I mean, I don't even remember. I don't remember what was happening because there's so many crazy things that have happened. But excuse me, I wrote songs that are, protest tunes for sure. I wrote songs that are aggressive to kind of people's mindsets and tribalism and stuff like that. And it's like, well, that seems like the last 20 years, that seems like post 9/11. So I can live with that, but it's weird because like we're looking at it and we're going through lines of like, we had a single that we were going to push first. And one of the lines was, I've got a disease, something that belongs to me. And then we were like, we can't release that right now. Like we cannot release that song right now. And like we did have that conversation, like it's an awkward song to be releasing. And I wrote it a year ago, So we had to kind of bury it a little bit and like, we're going to push it out eventually. But I don't know, man. Like I agree. Like I think as a writer, you're supposed to just write what you feel. And I get that, like you said, like people right now are they're bad off, and I know we're feeling it too, financially and emotionally, God, and our mental health, it's all in check, but I think honestly, I think we're going to be okay. I think, I trust society and maybe not American society, but I trust global society, global citizens and science enough to know that in 2 years, we'll look back and be like, remember that whole year where we all had to wear a mask? Like that was some crazy shit.
Yes. At some point it'll turn and then you'll be like, dude, you're still wearing a mask? Like I thought we were off last time. But that's no time soon. All right, guys, this has been really fun, but I want to give you a chance to plug, well, obviously the music and your upcoming live streams and everything else. So give us the rundown. Where and when can we find you guys doing what you do best?
Sure. So we have another single going out on Friday called For You. I would argue it's probably the strongest tune on the record. Dakota's got a couple of shining moments on it, which are pretty solid. And then the next Friday, the record goes out, and that's obviously on all platforms. We'll be on Bandcamp. Pale Blue Dot is the name of the band. The record is called Kingdom, Phylum, Class, Order, Family, Genus, Species. You can call it Kingdom for short if you want to. We will have some live streams. I just don't know what the dates are yet. I know we're going in on like the 2nd and the 3rd, but I don't know if that's a live stream or if that's a pre-recorded thing. But yeah.
I love it, guys.
Yeah, it's all together.
Okay.
Well, I don't think we got the socials in there. Can you give everyone the socials too?
Yeah. So you can follow us on Facebook. It's just Pale Blue Dot, Pale Blue Dot VA as in Virginia. And that's also our Instagram handle, and our website is www.paleblue.band.com.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I love what you're doing, and I look forward to hearing and seeing more in the future.
Thank you, James. It was nice to meet you, man. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.